Guitars I
Hey,
have a love hate relationship with.
Taylor. Yep. Some of them are amazing. Some of them are
No, they're no,
pains
as a
in the butt.
guitar, they're so I think from factory built guitars for consistency, like I can pick one up to the next and them all basically sound the same. Taylor's the most consistent.
Mm.
That being said, their pickup systems suck.
Yes. And
They're
with
they're
their built-in microphone that's in their cheaper brands. Oh my gosh, dude.
well,
That
it's all
thing
of them
is
because it's a 3 pin Piats. And
it's
they have a new version out that has an internal microphone that blends, but you don't have enough blend control.
right.
Like on the guitar, you don't have enough blend control for your out.
Yeah. No, I would 100% rather use a what is that? A humbuckler or whatever it's called.
A humbucker? Yes, but I won't do it.
You won't do it?
Nope. I won't make the modification to an acoustic.
Mm.
So I have a lapel set up
Hmm.
that I use at church that I can put on any of my guitars.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Huh. Okay.
It's not perfect, but it's so much better than trying to deal with the Piats in the Taylors.
Yeah.
I've never been able to get the Taylors to sound right with that pickup.
Yeah, we've heavily modified the EQ. We have a whole effects channel on our board dedicated
For
to,
one Taylor.
to the thing.
For one Taylor.
It's
Yeah.
like nope. Mm.
Well, and it's because it can decide if it wants to be electric or not, and it
Right,
just there's nothing there. It's not
right.
dry is not even the word for it.
Nope. And so the guy got it. He's all excited about it, but he also doesn't. You should see the pick guard. And instead of like a month, that thing was just tore up, and
Mm,
he
it's normal.
well, no, but he taps. He taps the
So
guitar, so it's like a really quiet part of the song. Tap,
clunk clunk
tap,
clunk clunk.
tap.
Yeah.
The guy who does our tech directing is like, "What is that?" Like, it's his pick. Oh, we were hoping it was his watch. It was not his watch. It's the pick. All right. Well, I'm live. Are you live?
You're I've been live.
Been live. I knew the answer to the question when
We're
I asked it.
on 5.5 hours.
5.5. Man, only 5.5. Yeah, we got. I'm gonna bring that down just a hair. Because we're pretty dead even on the audio right now. So, chat, I hope you
Cool.
guys are having a fantastic evening. If this is your first time stopping by, my name is Pastor B. This is Dr. Elliot, and we're here because God loves His online community, and He loves us, and not because we are just this wealth of information, but we've been through some things together, and or we've been through some things, and together,
Hmm.
we can definitely lend some insight into life's, some of the tougher things that have gone on. But our first priority is that we get to share Jesus with you. If that sounds weird, if Jesus is a historical figure to you, a teacher, a rabbi to you, we want to introduce the fully God, fully man Jesus to you. Um, yeah, there's something we say that a lot on this channel, and I'm just
Yeah.
it just hit me. It just hit me. How you know what a drastic difference that makes. Um, if you've been in here at all, you've probably heard us say that if Jesus wasn't God, then Christianity is a joke. Because there's not a single sacrifice that humanity could atone, could pay, um, for the price of sin in all of our lives, and so only God Himself could pay that price. So I mean, we're sharing the gospel right out the gate without even anybody asking questions, but that's just how the introduction started.
Yep.
So that's that. We're ready. I'm ready, but let's go ahead and open up this time in a prayer, and we'll get started. Learned this from Dr. Elliot. Took my hat off. Dear Jesus, thank you for this time. Thank you for all that you have been doing in our lives. Lord, we're humbled that we get to be a part of the wonderful work that you're doing in this online community. Lord, we thank you for what you're doing in our lives. Lord, the way that we are more than conquerors because of your Son. Lord, and I just pray, Father, that you would give us insight, wisdom, discernment, whatever is needed, God. Lord, because we desperately want to serve you, not out of fear and trembling, but out of gratitude and thankfulness. Lord, help us to lead people into all truth. Give us wisdom and discernment. Give us Holy Spirit, speaking knowledge, Lord, out of our mouths, Lord. And I just pray for people to come receptive, or the people that are looking, Lord, right now, that they would find this channel, they would find this thing, Lord. And God, I just turn this time over to you, Lord. Be glorified and magnified in it. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
And amen. All right. Well, so our main thing here is that we open up for questions. We are not under any obligation to answer every single question that's posed in the chat. I don't know if we've turned down anything that wasn't an obvious heckle. And
I don't
then
think so. Not that I'm aware of.
we started off strong last week. We were like, 5 minutes in, and someone talked about animals going to heaven. And it was like,
Yeah.
do you think this? And it was like, you know what? That was the first one that we really just sat there and just kind of walked through it, worked through it. It was a good time.
Yeah.
We got Apine Creek. Welcome in. Man, where is Apine Creek? We got another person. I can't see it. I'm gonna pull up my YouTube so I can see the chat because I'm blind. Chat, I'm blind.
That is a dark blue.
It's a dark blue. That's Lakia Reed. Welcome in.
All
I
right.
appreciate you being here. I was like, it's on. It's I can see it, but I still can't read it. It's Lakia. If I read it wrong, please let me know. Yeah. So we are here answering life and faith questions. If you guys are comfortable, be a little vulnerable with us. We promise to be vulnerable right back. Right back. Wow, we've talked
Minnesota.
Don't you know?
Hey, I got in trouble when I was in college.
You went to Minnesota?
I lived on the border. I was in Minnesota every other day. When I was up there working, I was bagging groceries for one of our. I always befriend the old people, right? And I worked mornings with the people, the older generations. And I said, would you like a beg with that? Because they don't say bag, they say beg. And the lady turns to me and she goes, "Are you making fun of me?" I said, "No, instead of saying A, I would have said AB." She looked at me like, okay.
Yeah. You deserved it.
She hated everyone but me. It was great. Everyone got. I was that way with a lot of people there though. Like I had a lot of people who were like everyone was scared of them for some reason. But I was like their friends, and I was like, I'll. You don't want to talk to him? I'll go talk to him.
All right. Well, we got a question here. We have Kaylee. Hi, welcome in, Kaylee. Appreciate the love. I'm trying to read it here, but it says, "Hey there, I'm sorry you're getting through this, but I'm going through the process right now. So if I don't answer, you can just let us know. or you can just let me know if you're able to talk right now.
Oh, we're doing right now.
So we're answering questions. We're more than happy to answer a specific question that you have. Okay. All right. Then we got our first question from TikTok right there. Okay, I got something. What is y'all's thoughts on the life as a practicing Christian versus an agnostic? I'm gonna reread that. Okay, I got something. What is y'all's thoughts on the life as a practicing Christian versus an agnostic? What challenges can you perceive of one to another?
So you're saying like challenges, say, okay, post scenario. Are you saying challenges of, say, a Christian and an agnostic being friends?
None. I'm friends with atheists.
I mean,
I'm friends with agnostics.
yeah.
I'm friends with Buddhists.
Let me go down the list.
Let's go down the list. I take that back. I don't know if I have any.
I think
Buddhist
both of
friends.
us want some clarity,
right,
on that one.
Yeah.
I think I can speak for us being in the same boat there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that there's speaking to, for my atheist friend, her thing is, don't talk to me about Jesus. Fair enough, but guess who asks questions about Jesus? My atheist friend. So
hey, now I start coughing.
So that's for me. Once you start bringing it up, it's fair game until you shut it down again. I know it's a strange question, but an agnostic was saying that my life was better. So your life as a Christian was better, or your life as an agnostic was better?
I mean, it sounds like a great, if it's what I'm thinking, it sounds like a great entry conversation to the gospel.
I just realized who this was. It's okay. I'm looking at, it's on a black background and it's a dark blue text.
I can't see who it is.
This is Chicken Nuggies, which I believe is Sergeant Siesta.
Hi, Siesta.
Also, this is Siesta. There it is. I'm like, you coming in here? I need information. Okay. Well, so an agnostic doesn't know what to believe, right?
Yeah.
And Catholics know a set of beliefs, a lot of tradition, a lot of other stuff.
Right.
Okay. So, life without certainty is very hard. Okay. So if someone comes to you and says, there may or there may not be a God, that person has no security. That person has no, what we would understand as a moral absolute. There's different problems that come to people who do not recognize that there is a singular absolute truth, right? And so what would you find yourself in is you find yourself, kind of like what Paul says, in every wind of doctrine, right? Anything that sounds good, you can kind of grab onto and be like, I'm going to do that. And this is where you find people like talking to crystals, like, okay, they don't talk back, right? You may have a great breathing exercise and get a lot of extra oxygen to your brain. Is that an encounter with God? No, that's just you hyperventilating. Like, or listen. Anyways, you guys get what I'm saying.
Yeah.
So like, there's, if you're chasing a feeling, then that's something. But we know that feelings aren't accurate. Okay, you could feel amazing and you could have a cancer that is killing you. you might feel amazing. Like so, there's no certainty. There's no absolute truth for someone who is agnostic, and that makes things very complicated. I'll turn it over to Dr. Elliott.
Well, I think I think even more importantly is, I mean, understanding where they're coming from, right?
Mm-hmm.
As agnostic is helpful. That goes with anyone you deal with.
Right.
Study, I mean, it's a great practice to study other religion and what other people believe. Sit and listen to people. Let them tell you what they believe. Right? It's really hard to address issues if you don't know, and your first thing is to knee jerk react. Oh, I don't agree with that. Sit and have a whole conversation about it. Ask them questions. It's kind of funny to do that. You know, when the Jehovah's Witness comes around the corner and you step outside and the actual conversation with them, they don't really know what to do.
Mm.
They're not used to that. And then when you come back with Bible, then they're really confused because they never have that happen, right? But
Right.
you open the door to a legitimate conversation a lot of times. And in your case, you know, um, that's an opportunity. You know, okay, so you think my life is better. Why do you think that? Let them explain why they think it and go from there. You know, because it steps straight into the, well, I have Christ. Let me share with you Christ. 'Cause
Mm.
this is ultimately why I have those differences and you feel this way about it. Right? I mean, to me, it's less of a situation of, you know, challenges as much as just don't view it as a challenge, view it as an opportunity.
Mm. Well, so I mean, essentially, what this person is saying there, too, is that same person would go to an atheist and say your life is better, right? Because
Potentially, but
it's well, I mean, essentially, that's the thing. Because let's say that you are unsure, so that means that there either is or there isn't, right? If there isn't, and I'm not serving that God, and I'm not meeting the requirements, then then there is going to come a judgment. There is going to come a finite thing, right? And
right.
if there isn't, then nothing matters because we're all just going to return to the dirt, and life continues on. Well, that's not exactly, I'm starting to sound like Jordan B. Peterson. Well, that's not exactly a great option either, right? It's like yeah, an agnostic, I think, really has a tough thing. And correct me if I'm wrong, but agnostics also tend to hold on to everything. So are agnostics Gnostic? Is that the
I mean,
So Gnosticism is an umbrella term for various ancient religious and philosophical movements from the first and second centuries. It centers on the belief that salvation comes through secret, intuitive, spiritual knowledge, gnosis, rather than faith teaching. Yeah, so that's not exactly agnostic. Agnostic is
yeah.
we were going down the right thing there.
Mhm.
Okay.
I see him
So
working on his conversation, but he's stuck in the TikTok, only letting him have so many letters.
yeah. Soundwave, good to see you. It has been a minute. I actually thought about you the other day. I think you have my number. Send me a text. I need to, I wanted to check in with you, see how you were doing. Jonathan C7, welcome in. You are a 3-time visitor in a row, maybe 4. I don't know. It's getting
At
up
this
there.
point, we call you a regular attender. Anyway,
Exactly. We'll put you up for membership, and don't worry, we only take 9.5%. Like you're unlike churches that take 10%. No, just kidding. Can you imagine? Okay, there's the heresy. First one, count it.
I don't know which direction you are here.
Yeah. Well, I'm on your screen to your left. So nope. Like I don't know. Other arm. I can't tell if you're pointing back this way. So there. That's the direction I'm in. If you're pointing that direction. Apine Creek says, "Have a great friend who doesn't believe in God anymore. I believe it is because he has trouble seeing the world in a good way after several deployments. I've tried to help him through it, but I can't.
That's a legitimate thing that I've run into.
Mm-hmm.
I have an aunt. She was drill sergeant in the Air Force, and you know, she believed in God. So I wouldn't say so far that she went so far as to say she didn't believe in God. But in dealing with it, her response was, "How could a loving God allow so many bad things to happen?" And it made it was a major stumbling block in her life for years. And it took going through some things in her life for her to realize, it's not always, there's multiple perspectives to things. So, it's hard. And I think ultimately it's not so much of trying to fix the person per se, and helping them as much as being there and being a friend. A lot of those people like that, it's not a case of don't bring it up. Go have your, go get coffee with them all the time. Go play around the golf. Go, I don't know, take your pick, whatever. Whatever you guys would do together, and just be there. Because there's going to come a point where they have questions or something spurns it to come back up, and you'll be there.
Right. Yeah, we want to welcome in the raiders that just raided into the Twitch. Ninja Sauce, thank you so much for that raid. So appreciate you. If you guys heard the song that played, I was debating on if I should mute it because Dr. Elliott was giving a great sharing there, and I'm like, we want you to feel welcome. God loves this online community, and that includes you. That's how that piece ends. And we're here sharing the love of Jesus, and we're having a blast doing it. We're off to a great start. Usually takes about 30 to 45 minutes for things to kick off, but not today. We're right out of the gates. So yeah, that's a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Let's see. So for X Bubble Bubby Bear, yes, thank you for sharing Jesus. So amazing. Hey, we can facilitate, and if you hang out and chat and you share and you put stuff and you add things to things, we're not doing this on our own. We're doing this with the body of believers. So feel free to hang out if you got the time, and put your testimony in there, share with people. I'm on YouTube, I'm on the Tickety Talk, we're on Twitch, but we'll try to share it in a way that everybody can be a part of it. We got Dev Follow. I appreciate it. We're also live with Dr. Elliott. He's on that side. I reversed my screen. Or if you're in vertical, he's down there. Make sure to drop him a follow. It's Doc Dr Elliott ELLIOT_gaming. That's his Twitch, and we've been doing this now since the beginning of the year. We went through Romans, and now I can't believe it. We're 3/4 or 2/3 of the way through the year, and it's like, whoa, we're still going long.
It's done well.
Do we have Bible studies? Yes. So we went through Romans, then we're doing this. We may revert to a Bible study thing again. I don't know. But yeah, you're more than welcome.
Yeah.
If you want to participate, feel free to reach out, get in the Discord, shoot me a DM. We kind of did it this way so we can involve other people, and we
have yet to do that.
We have yet to do that. There was somebody I wanted to invite, and I'm like, I need to talk to Dr. Elliott before I start bringing in people. I need
I've had a few ideas, but I haven't also called him yet either.
I know. Hey, we're both doing a lot of different things. We're both planning churches. We're both doing all sorts of stuff.
Yeah, it's a thing.
Exactly.
It's a thing. To be fair though, like we'll see what happens going into next year. I know month of December for me is probably going to be interesting. I still plan on being available in some capacity. I may be sitting on a mobile phone to do this. So my chat may only get my picture, but at least if I do it correctly, he'll have it. But because I'm trying to line things up for a trip with this, and I've got a few churches I need to go talk to. I'm going to go spend a bunch of time with family. we've basically been handed our go button.
Nice.
We just, paperwork side of things. So yeah.
Yeah. Jonathan C7, how about 4.5% in serving kids
I
ministry?
was laughing because of that earlier.
Well, if you can find a biblical basis for that, go for it. But yeah, no,
if we
it's
went off of those percentages, man.
and serving kids ministry, it's in Leviticus. That serving in kids ministry would be in Leviticus. Let's be fair. Of all the books in the Bible, it would be in Leviticus.
Some old kids, but yeah.
No. Like I mean, something like the mandate. Like you have to do this and this and do this and this. And, oh my goodness. Sergeant CS made it. Apine Creek. Yeah, I wanted to go back to your thing. I wanted to welcome in those Raiders. But this is the thing about faith, okay? And I'm going to say this as a third generation Christian and minister and pastor and all this stuff. If you are not constantly challenging your faith, you're doing yourself a disservice. Okay. And I'm not saying to take what you said out of context. What I'm saying is that your friend believed in God, went on 3 deployments, saw what the world is like halfway across the globe. Okay. Saw what sin and the depravity of man is capable of, did things that he or she is wrestling with, it's a him. Hey, you never know. But there's there's this thing, right? And it's like, and I'm speaking to everybody because for most of you who have been a part of this, I've been doing this for 5 years now. This is the year that I've streamed the least. This has been a really hard season for me, and I found out through the process and therapy and everything like that, like I was trying to safeguard myself from a reality that I couldn't safeguard myself from. Like if you tuck yourself into a thing, if you only stream with certain people, if you only align yourself in certain things, if you only go into an echo chamber, right?
Mm-hmm.
You'll never gonna grow. And so, for your friend, the truth of the matter is that he's either going to belong to Jesus or he's not. The sin in the world only draws a comparison to Christ when it demonstrates just how not like the world Jesus is. If you're reading in, Psalms 139 or 140, it talks about, even in the darkness, he is light. Right? Like there's this, I'm not one of those people, by the way, I just happened to read this yesterday or today, I don't remember which. Okay. But that is who Jesus is. Okay. And I had people that I went to, somebody I went to Bible school with, she married somebody pretty new to the faith, and they went to the Philippines as missionaries. We're back inside of 2 years, and they are now atheists, because they saw what human trafficking and the level of things that were going on in the Philippines, and they could not rationalize how. It would be unfair for me to assume what they thought, because they would need to explain for themselves, but we can't let the world dictate for us how good God is. We have to be in relationship with Jesus. We have to be in relationship with our friends and our family, and we bring people around. And so for your friend, just like you said, I've tried to help him through it, but I can't. You have no idea the impact that you're having on your friend's life. You go be who Jesus called you to be.
Yeah.
You let Jesus do the work. Okay. I heard a song. It sounded very kitschy, but I'm gonna say it. It's like that praise report's one prayer away, something like that. It's like, your miracle's one prayer away. It's like, what is a Little Orphan Annie? Tomorrow.
Yeah.
Like, no, but on the other side of it, it's like absolutely God is who he's always been.
Yeah. I mean, I think my uncles, and I know I've mentioned it, I think on here before, but I've mentioned it in passing to people, and he 100% wants people to know his testimony. He wants people to know what God's done for him. And, he put things into perspective, talking about third generation Christian. I go back even farther. I'm into 5 known generations with pastors in it, and my grandparents missionaries to Germany, and that's what my uncle grows up in. That's what he's known.
Right.
Went to Bible college, on fire for the Lord. Turns around, sometime when I was very young. We'll just say some things happened. Uh, Started getting into some stuff and heading off another direction. Um, and by the time I was, 10 or 11. By that point, now it's turning into watching him having conversations with our dad where, we're not always in on the conversations, but you can see him there talking and getting a little heated about things because he's headed off towards proclaiming he's an atheist. I always tell people, because and this matters here in a second, we never questioned that our uncle loved us. Like he would always tell us, listen to your parents; they do want what's best for you. Like he would tell us that when we'd go to leave. He still did his best to be a good uncle. He wasn't trying to be a pain in the butt about it, but he very much didn't agree with some things. He was basically mad at his parents for how they raised him.
Mm.
And then fast forward, he ended up moving. Everyone lost contact with him. Things got really bad. Dad was trying to do his best to keep on top of him. Um, they dad got a call from his roommate that he had where he'd moved, and he'd ended up in the hospital. So they got him back up to my grandparents, and he was there for a little bit, and still not doing well at all. And he ended up while he was there. Um, I don't want to say run off because the guy's 50 years old, but basically took off again. And in the process of doing so, is when God effectively got a hold of him by that point.
Mm.
And he'll tell you now he was sitting, he was listening. He went back to something he grew up with, which was Keith Green. My whole family grew up we it's my last name. We grew up with it. Um, he was listening to that, and he realized he needed to separate from himself from everything that he had replaced God with.
Mm.
Like that was his realization. He was mentally not there.
Yeah.
Driving down the road, had a sunroof, and he had this little like 90s Honda Prelude. Had a sunroof down. It's middle of winter in Kansas City. Chucks his wallet out the thing. Chucks his phone out. Pull over in a random neighborhood. Has no idea where he is. He didn't even remember where he'd parked his car. He says he remembered throwing his key in the seat, saying, "I don't want any ties to anything that I feel like is going to controlling my life." And he took off walking. They picked him up about half frozen off of a park bench. But he'd taken the steps to get everything out. Now I'm in Bible college at this point in my life. I had talked to my mother. I was getting ready to come home on a break. I talked to my mom, and she's like, "Hey, your uncle, like, he's different." That's basically how she said it. And I remember I would always call my grandma and say, "Hey, I'm going to be in town. I'm going to stop by for a night, 2 nights, whatever."
Right.
And he's back living with them, answers the phone.
Hmm.
And I'm like mind blown.
Yeah.
Because I don't recognize the man. Like I knew my uncle loved me. And then on that trip back there, like I was already like, I don't know what I'm walking into. Like I'm not used to this. Like, what is it? Who is this guy?
Right.
Walked in, sat down. We were up till 2 a.m. sitting there talking. A whole side of my uncle I had heard about when he went to Bible college, but I had never seen. But
Right.
he went through the whole phase stage of I'm an atheist. I'm mad at my parents for what they've taught me. All these things. It took a lot of things happened in his life before he got his life right and turned around.
Yep.
But you talked about the the whole prayer thing. We prayed for years about him.
Yeah.
Something through you know a few years. I heard an individual preach. It was out of Isaiah. They were talking about praying a hedge of protection. And there were a bunch of us that I know I'd mentioned it to a few people. I'm like, dude, this is what we need to pray for him. It's just what I felt led to do.
Hmm.
And it was crazy, you know. And it's one of those things where it's like you don't give up. It's not our decision to give up, and you just have to be there for people.
Mm.
But yeah.
Yeah. Sergeant Siesta put some big chat in there. He moved over from the text restrictions. Sometimes we need to force the enforceable path the Lord has for us. The lack of believing, unfortunately, creates the uncertainty in ourselves. In order to help someone, you have to put yourself in God's hands first and find that love for yourself. Entirely submitting yourself to God is hard, but doing so enables you to be to have comprehension of what He is asking you to do with your life and what He needs you to do and where you need to be. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And Bubby Bear said, I had to separate myself from everyone to literally grow relationship with God. And it was the most beautiful journey. And although I lost things and people along the way, no matter what I had, God and I was, no matter what, I had God and I was always okay. Yeah. No, absolutely. There's so many things that we think we have control over. Bless you. There's so many things that we think we have control over, and it's you keep going back to the Psalms, like, who is man that God would concern himself without us, right?
Yeah.
Like, who, like, there's somebody put it this way, is like, you're only 3 bad decisions away from being homeless, right? Like, yeah. And we think that if we just put this thing up, but I've met people that made all the right choices.
Yeah.
And I don't, we tend to put things out there and think that success is, doing this and this and this, or success is making sure you're starting a church that, their first Sunday you have 500 people there, and like that's what success is. And if it's not that, then is there even a spirit of excellence, and and so on and so forth. But today, on Wednesdays, we do a prayer room at our church, and I go to help out with the media stuff. And we there's a song called Slowly Go or something like that. And it's like, I want slow hands, slow heart. I want to move at your pace. And I was like, if I'm sitting here trying to justify what I'm doing to other people because they think it should be going faster, but I know I'm in the will of God and doing exactly what God wants me to do, who am I pleasing when I'm trying to make something be more than what it is? Like, it's not, and it's frustrating, but that frustration is self-inflicted. It's like, I think things should be over here. I think you know what? God ways are way higher than my ways, and his thoughts
Yeah.
are way higher than my thoughts. And it's really easy to get lost in the weeds in something that you created while trying to please God or do something great for God. But what God has called you to do is already great. So go ahead and just do that. There's a hot take right there.
Yeah.
Yeah. When
Well,
we,
I think that was partially in reference to the concept of the echo chamber
yeah.
as well. And I think the thing that people need to understand is every single one of us is in a different place.
Mhm.
Um, the decisions we make are different. We all deal with different things. We all handle situations differently.
Mhm.
And I can speak to the echo chamber. Like it's I have that group of friends where I can go sit down and it's nice theological conversations, and we'll all agree with each other and it'll be peachy. You know,
Yeah.
for me, it was hitting that point of I'm not reaching people.
Mm.
You know, because this is all I do with my time, and it's accomplishing nothing, right? But we're all in different places, and if you don't have a relationship with God, it's not hanging out with certain people.
Yeah. Well, but on the other side, I mean, it in so many ways, Bible school can be an echo chamber
Oh,
because
100, yeah,
peop
100%.
if you're not doing it this way, like because I went to Bible school 3 different times. Yeah, I'm a remedial student. The first time, was the seeker sensitive movement. And by that I mean seeker sensitive was already trending up, and by then they had teachers that had come out of that, and now they were teaching that in Bible school. And then when I went back to school the second time, that was out, and the new thing was in, and it was like, okay, but here's the thing, you know if you look at scripture, God calls every person to do something that is unique. A church is not a group of people that sit here and do a 5-step plan to start a church. A church is a unique DNA. It has a unique set of values, and it's a unique structure every single one. And so I struggle with the concept of campus churches that are out there that are in different contexts and different places and with different people, because there really is a unique need that is not being met because you're assigning values and culture from another subset of people onto another subset of people.
And
That's
don't get
just
me
me.
started on that.
I'm not saying that it can't bless people. I'm not saying that it can't work.
You
I'm
know,
saying
it's
I don't understand it.
I gotta, I gotta pull out a
Oh,
pedestal here real quick, and
oh,
I get
soapbox.
tired. Soapbox. I get really tired too with that when the campus churches, the parent church of that has a very large Bible college that's known for training pastors.
Let's not be specific now.
Well, there's a few. And you're sitting there with like, okay, so you have young individuals who need experience, but you're still going to live stream your service to a screen on a campus church.
Mhm.
All right, so can we put these two together, please? You have the perfect opportunity to give someone experience with guidance. Oh, anyway.
There's a very popular creator out there. I don't know if he's still has the traction that he did, but he kind of struck a chord with a lot of people. The main phrase, and you'll know who it is: senior global pastor. Um, that guy. I had to stop watching him. I really did. Because I'm like at a certain point, like it's just vitriol. Okay, like we've passed the funny. Now we're like, we have a deep seated issue here. But
Yeah.
but there's something. There was a video that he did where he's like, oh my gosh, like I've been volunteering on the media team for 2.5 years, and if you just take this shot, and and they take the shot that he has on the camera, and they bring it up, and he's all excited. He goes, I might actually get to meet my pastor now. And it's like, I how can you shepherd people you don't have relationship with? How do you disciple people that you don't have connection with? And I'm not, guys, we're not here to talk about the pros and cons of all of this stuff. I mean, it's just this kind of a little regular thing that we're pulling out here. But the main thing of it is, right, is like, when you're in Bible college, you're taught that this is the expectation and this is the outcome. And if you and there is an option of doing everything right. But, at the end of the day, you really do have a need to not be sucked into what everyone else is doing, because God didn't call you to do what everyone else is doing. God has called you to be unique and to go forth and to preach the gospel. Bubby Bear says, I gotta go, but good night, guys. Thanks for the chat, and hopefully I'll catch you on next time. Yes, we are here Wednesday nights, 9-ish. 9-ish. Emphasis on the ish.
Pacific.
And Dr. Elliot's live 5 hours before that. So, if you want, you can always pregame the sharing if you want to. Yeah. But no, thank you for the follow.
Yeah.
Thank you for being here. Appreciate you. Jonathan says that's true. I literally read that as it came up on the screen, so it'll give you an idea of how much of a delay there is, because I feel like there was a significant part difference. There's probably
imagine we're discussing the
delay.
whole thing about how can you shepherd.
Yeah. And here's the thing, right? Like when you look at the churches in South Korea with a million members, like
yeah,
there's a cultural component to that I don't think that I could ever understand.
I think that this is where, thanks for the follow, Bubby Bear. Anyway, this is where I think, and this is getting into a leadership conversation less than gospel,
right?
Because yeah, Pacific-ish. raw flag.
Accurate.
This is where you get into the whole leadership conversation, because if a pastor sets himself up correctly in a church, he's the last person to hear about someone going to the hospital. He's the last person about hearing someone passing away. Why? Because someone in the church was doing their job, checking in on their brothers and sisters in Christ. And they're the ones going to the pastor going, hey, this happened, but we've already been to the hospital. We've already, whatever, because the work of the ministry, as far as that goes, isn't necessarily, it's a very traditional mindset of it being the pastor's job. Like there are churches where that's what they want. And when that's what you're after as a church, you will only ever make it to about 200 people. Period.
I'll take it.
But you will also have people that aren't growing because they're not doing the work of the ministry as a result. And so and it ends up being the pastor becomes the lid of growth. There's always your hurdles of growth. There's a lot of philosophies on that, from your actual physical limitation of capacity. Our sending church is in this situation right now for this church plant. They were standing room only Sunday. Like they literally had people standing in the back of the auditorium. They were so packed full. They have no clue why they had 80 more people than the week before. Right? But they're in that situation where it's really hard as a church to grow that way. And it sounds stupid to Christians. But if you are someone trying to find a church and you walk in the doors of a church and there's no room to sit down, it's to the point after COVID where if you're too close to your neighbor, it's a deal breaker to people. We don't like that as Christians, but it's a reality. That seems these are things as a leadership of church you have to consider. But there comes a point where there's always a lid to something. Fellowship space can be a lid. Like you can have a church that's bigger than you have the capacity to sit down and have a extracurricular activity, so to speak, and make it hard for people to show up, because now you're going to have people who it happens all the time. This is where we're at here, where I'm at now. Our fellowship hall space isn't big enough. Guess what? We pack it out, and there's a bunch of people not coming because they know there's not going to be a place to sit down.
Yep.
And these are all things, and there comes a point where the pastor himself can be that lid to growth, but it often has to do with how much they want to hold on to things.
Yep.
And not willing to hand things to other people, and what structure they've utilized. When you look in scripture and you look at how the church is structured, and they're not all the same.
Right.
That's just something else that people need to understand, is there's differences. Like certain people had to approach it and go, this is what I'm dealing with. Here's how I'm going to resolve it. Right. But you do have to do something.
I'm going to give a break here from the leadership thing.
Yeah, we don't need to go down that road. Anyway,
I'm going to invite everyone again. If you guys have questions about life, faith, ministry, the gospel, the word, whatever's out there, please put something in the chat. We would love to answer those questions. And while you're doing that, I'm going to give you guys a hot take. Okay. Because I was serving a church in 2020. I was there in the epicenter for the pandemic in California, Santa Clara County. I was probably one of the first people who had COVID. And I'm going to say this, okay, because there's so many people out there that was like, well, the government shut down the church. Okay. And here's the hot take. The government didn't shut down the church. Government shut down the way the church was comfortable doing church.
Yeah.
So I'm not saying if you close your doors, I'm not saying that you're wrong. I'm saying if you said, well, there's no way we can do church, there's no way that we can love on people, there's no way that we can share the gospel, there's no way that we can disciple people because we can't get together in our nice little comfy church thing and do the potluck. I'm sorry. The church was forced to grow. And what did we see? That the church would rather close its doors and not than to find it. And I'm not saying every church. My church expanded, Zoom, did all sorts of stuff. I mean, it kind of led to the digital ministry that I'm doing today, right? But as a whole, the church in America focused on the injustice of having to shut doors, as opposed to focusing on how can we do church and how can we do this for this short period of time. Yeah. Right. And then desperately longing to be back together in person. And I think that's biblical, to wanting to be together in person. Paul expresses his desire to be with people, that he knew he was never going to see again because he's in prison in Rome. Right. To not forsake the gathering of believers, like all of that stuff is scriptural. But on the other side, it's like it was an inconvenient thing. It wasn't going to last forever. Everybody knew that. Okay. But it's way easy to make excuses and say, oh, well, it was just too difficult. So here we go. So either your church grew because of COVID or it shut down, because there was very few things that were in between. And the churches that did okay were the churches that, that had small groups, people that were already connected to each other outside of the Sunday morning service because they were growing in these small, compact, intimate units. That was the church that I served at. I'm not saying their Sunday attendance didn't suffer. Of course, the Sunday service suffered, but the ministry of the church exploded because of the opportunities that COVID gave. Okay? So that's my hot take. There may be some people that disagree. I'm not saying it wasn't hard. It was hard. I was working 7 days a week doing all sorts of different things, trying to make things work, but at the end of the day, we can see resistance and we can see negativity and we can see the outcome of the people that really pushed to be careful, or to be careful, to be mindful of not letting the oppression stifle the church.
Yes.
And Jonathan C7 said that's what got me. It's how long it took people to come back. Hey, when I got to go to church in my underpants with my bowl of honey bunches of oats and a cup of hot coffee, yeah, it was a little difficult to go back to in person.
We have so many people who never came back, and we have had over the past my 3 years of being here, there's still people trickling back in. Like, it's still, we're still dealing with it.
Yeah.
As far as the in-person side of it.
Yeah. But what is your church doing to minister to the people that won't come back? Because the church has a reputation of saying, well, you're not coming to church, so we're not going to follow up with you. we're gonna take away your membership. If you're not coming back to church, maybe you weren't doing, maybe church was just a checklist thing for you. But maybe churches also really care about that checklist. Hey, it's important. I'm going to use the restroom. Once again, chat, we don't want to sit here and talk about church, the improper way of doing church and calling out leaders and doing things like that. We want to share the gospel and share all truth with people. And this is our perspective, and we can be wrong on some of this stuff, but doesn't feel wrong. But feelings are always accurate. Always accurate. So I'm going to leave you with Dr. Elliot's face on my stream, and I'm going to use the restroom. I'll be right back. Oh, there it is. Be right back.
Yeah, I mean, there's always, every church handles it differently. People showing up or not showing up, or all of that, checking in. That's just part of it. I think the thing to remember is, as a Christian in a church, don't be the one waiting for someone else to do it. If you see someone who hasn't been there in a couple weeks, you step up, contact them. Like, the Christians become very comfortable, and this is where him talking about checklist comes off. Like, if we're utilizing church as a checklist, that we're just showing up, then we've missed the point. Work of the ministry is for everyone. Everyone's called to do something. It's not just those in leadership positions. And as a church, the other side of it is you're there to reach lost people as well. Like, yes, it's there for the edifying of the saints, but you're also still there to reach lost people. And there's a strength in numbers because it allows you to be more effective. Excuse me. But yeah, I mean, that's just part of it, checking in on people. But yeah, I don't know. I go back and forth with a lot of it because there's so many differing opinions, and yeah, yeah, basically.
Maybe I should have put my earbuds in before I switched to the shared screen. Oh, Vertical doesn't care. Vertical gets everybody all the time. Yeah. We have online ministry, but we do house visits to check on those who haven't returned or missed a few days. Okay. Yeah.
Waiting for the repeat of what I just said. Now he's going, what would Dr. Elliot say?
How much pressure? It's like, on one side, like, yes. On the other side, like, what does the Bible say to do with somebody who doesn't accept reproof and rebuke? Is that what you said?
No, I told him.
Uh-oh.
Man, now we're heading back to the leadership conversation.
I know. I was like, I kept trying to dig us out of this.
No, my thing is don't, like, great, you guys do that. Don't be the one who waits for someone else to do it. When you as a Christian see your brother or sister in Christ who hasn't been there, you be the one to take the initiative, step up, reach out. This is, the thing is, we have a church full of people who come. You were talking about the checklist. We have churches full of people around the United States who come and sit in a pew.
Mm-hmm.
Everyone's called to do something, right?
Yep.
This is where, like, one of the things that's amazed me more recently, in the past 3 years, is I've seen Bible study groups. I've seen a lot of things done that way. When I came here, I stepped into a full different format. My first real introduction to a small group format. Doesn't work for everyone. But when I step into a format where 95% of the church members are actively in a group, right? I grew up where the norm is your Wednesday night service, you might have 15% of your church there. But now I'm stepping into a situation where there's 5 different small groups throughout the week, and you have 95% of the congregation involved in that, plus bringing people who won't come to a Sunday morning service with them.
Mm.
It happens all the time with us. It's interesting to see that, but it's been an avenue for us to deploy people, so to speak, because now you've given them something for them where they're, it's a little more on their schedule, right? Because they feel like they can pick something. But you've
Right.
also given them this avenue that when they invite someone, they was like, "Oh, I don't want to go to church." Well, come sit down with me and my group. There's only going to be 15 of us there, right? It's been interesting to watch, and we get conversation out of it, kind of like we'd sit down here and have a conversation with people,
Right.
and that's what you facilitate, and it's been really cool to see. I understand it doesn't work for everyone. It doesn't. Communities are different, cultures are different around the US. You go 2 hours south, I'm getting ready to step into a whole different ballgame, right? Because I'm stepping into a completely different town, completely different county. The politics shift from where I'm at now to there is drastically different. I'm headed back to the country, and right now I might as well, you and I have a very similar political climate. Now I'm stepping back to something I know a little better,
Yeah.
right? But yeah.
Well, Jeremy says, I have to say your name, Jeremy Brotherly Love. I think every Protestant church should restate the gospel in every sermon. Was it Billy Sunday who? No, I don't think it was Billy Sunday. Who was it? But he preached a sermon, and then there was like the big fires. I think it was in Chicago. And he didn't give an altar call, and people ran out of that church to go help out, put out the fire after the service. And some of those people didn't make it back,
Yeah.
and he said, I will never lose the opportunity to present the gospel. Might have been Billy Sunday. But the, everything about our life should point to Jesus, and there should always be an opportunity for sharing the gospel with people, just in everything. My message is not sending. Send it to me in a text. I'll read it in a text.
Yeah.
The men's group I was in wasn't meeting over the summer either. Understood as vacations, the kids out of school, etc. Yeah, our church, so not the church we're planting, but our sending church that we're participating in, they break it up. So they do a spring Bible study or fellowship group, and then they do a fall Bible. It's kind of goes. It basically ends right around November, so that it's not affecting the holiday plans. So there's a break in the summer, but they do a summer connection.
Yeah, like a seminar
2 times.
thing.
Well, no, that was tonight. It was the second one. It was just a backyard barbecue kind of a thing, and just the community comes out. We put chairs out on the front, just do it up, and and it's just nice. And there's such a thing. So there's importance for rhythm, but if it's kind of daunting to think, hey, are you going to come to Bible study if that's the same Bible study that's been going for 45 years and they've never taken a break?
People want the human mind wants an endpoint, right? We like to know, which is where the small group mindset switches from what traditionally was Bible study nights. Because as you're saying, it does. You just keep going and going and going and going, and then you get comfortable, you get easy. There's no switch up majorly talked about. Whereas when you switched up the format, you're doing the same thing, but you're doing it in a manner where there's an end date, right? So now it's a situation of, rather than feeling locked in forever, now it's all right, I'm going to be faithful for 8 weeks. I can do that, right?
Well, I mean, because at least the church is not judgmental if you ever miss Bible study. Yeah, we are.
Right.
Sister so and so had to visit her sister, and so she's disqualified for serving at the potluck because. Sorry, church. Do better.
Yeah.
Sergeant Siesta says, I mean, it is truly double-sided. Everyone has different opinions, but still, I agree with the fact we at all levels have to check in on our fellow Christians. However, the issue lays our lives where we can do that, but you can't, but you can sit there and they won't listen to what you have to say, or you will have the others that listen to you with their arms wide open. So we as Christians have to be intentional when we are pushing towards faith and Christian growth. If God is with us 200% of the time, we can't. Why can't we take ownership in our faith and be intentional when praising the Lord? Hey, I like it.
Well, and I think and he addresses that it's not just a case of, we don't go into a situation and make the decision based on, oh, well, they might not listen to us. They may not want to hear from us.
I go with the
You know how
expectation
many
people are
times
not
I've
going to
heard
listen.
that? You know how many times I've heard that? And it's like, all right, cool. Then I can move on. But at least I stepped out and tried.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway.
I'm not responsible for what you do with what I tell you. This last week,
Right.
I counseled somebody with something that I know God has been working in her heart. And I mean, it's just, we talked about it the whole time, and then the opportunity came, I counseled her like, hey, this is it. This is, up, she didn't do it. It's like, okay, like, I'm not responsible for your decisions. I still love you. I'm a little sad you didn't do it, but hey, maybe
be careful with this, Christians, too, though.
Mm-hmm.
Specifically with sharing the gospel with people.
Yeah.
There's a pastor in the, shall we say, lineage of the church I grew up in.
Lineage, sorry.
Yeah,
who begat who?
I don't know how it's yeah. Who was brought on as pastor, came into the community. Now, mind you, very small town farming community. Was there for a year, knocked every door, said, my job's done. I've knocked on every door. I can't reach anyone else. I'm leaving. If that's your mindset on trying to reach people, you don't know anyone in that town. There was no time taken to build a relationship with anyone. There was no time taken to attempt a second time.
Yep.
Door knocking isn't the only way to reach people. Door knocking is arguably very much going out of style right now. There are more and more no-knock communities. Where I live, it's very frowned upon because the only people who knock on your door are solicitors and lawyers. It's not a great look for a church, right? So you have to, you have to get creative. I hate it because it's hard, because it's what I grew up with. But there are other ways, and it's interesting though, because, if I take the mindset of, oh, I've talked to that person, I've shared Christ with them before, my job's done. Is it? Not really.
Well, I talked to somebody today who prayed for his brother to come to know the Lord. He prayed for him for 40 years.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And I think that we attribute success in sharing the gospel with people that turn from their wicked ways in that instant, in that moment. But there are very few people that I know that God has not had a previous engagement with for years and years and years, where God has been after this person consistently.
Yeah.
Through relationships, through whatever it is.
This is where things start, like, I'm going to go to statistics again. This is where things statistically start looking like sales. Right? Because, yeah, but it turns into that 3 points of contact that we talk about in sales. When I sold pianos, it was very much the case. Most of your customers had been to another piano store once, spurned the idea of buying a new piano, and then came to our store. We weren't their first interaction. Come to find out, there was on average 3 interactions with the individual. And you start talking to people, usually with someone getting saved, there's even more. And they just don't realize it. There was that individual they worked with who was a Christian, who was a light in their life. And they were a witness without even knowing it.
Yep.
Right? Just because of how they lived life, do their best to follow Christ. And it just continues.
Yeah. Well, I was sharing with another person, about digital ministry, and this was earlier on, and they were talking about how pastors didn't want to invest in digital ministry because they couldn't, they wouldn't be able to report right? The decisions for Christ, because it wouldn't equal it's not a button seat, it's not a, other things like that, or, like, or the potential that this person might end up in a church that would, that would be across the country, across the world, where, whatever, and so, like, and there's a few people out there that probably agree with that, but at the end of the day, like, I was thinking of, there's this story. I don't know, do you know who J. John is? His J is the first initial. His last name is John, but he's kind of like he's like an evangelist, but he does like public speaking. Phenomenal public speaker.
Oh yeah.
Go watch him. But he was like, he had to Uber or something like that, so he gets in the car. He's got 20 minutes, and he's like, hey, I've only got 20 minutes. What can I be praying for you for? And this guy said something, I don't know if his mom or his sister was dealing with something or other, and he goes, I'm gonna pray for that. Doesn't share the gospel with him, just starts praying out loud in the back seat while this guy is driving him to his appointment. 20 minutes later, 5 minutes into the praying time, the driver is in the front seat crying out, crying, like tears pouring down his face. I'm sorry, God, I'll go back to church. I'll do he didn't even tell him who he was, what he was doing. He just loved on him and was like, you know what, I'm an emissary. I'm gonna go
Yeah.
be in, go be in this. And like, we don't know. Okay. Would you feel bad if you sat there for 30 years preaching the gospel to somebody, then they came by a YouTube stream or Twitch stream, hang out with two guys, one with a very sad excuse for a beard, and that person shared the gospel with them, and they're like, I get it now. And they're like, yes, and they surrender their life to Christ. Are you going to be upset? You going to be mad? If you are, you got a problem with you, because you better be excited that person finally gave their life to Christ.
Yeah.
I'm not, honestly, you know what? I'll be honest. I think we're over here taking the opportunity to share the gospel with people because other people haven't, or wouldn't, or didn't.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. I'm not going to apologize I'm sorry. And I'm not going to apologize for doing what God has called me to do because you didn't do it. Okay, this is not a
Right.
this is not this is not a I'm so great and you're so bad. This is a I'm being faithful with what God has called me to do. Here's the fruit.
Yeah.
Here's the fruit. Let's get back to questions. We had such a strong start with questions earlier. What's is there something that somebody's struggling with, life or health, or I think we might have missed one earlier. What do you do with the droughts of faith? What was that from C7? What do y'all do in time of drought, like when your faith seems small? Bible verse comes to mind, but I'm not gonna start there. I'd rather wrap it up, because I'd rather give that question what it deserves. Gideon is not remembered as a man of phenomenal faith. Gideon is remembered at how he started, unfortunately.
Yeah.
And he's remembered as a coward. He's remembered as timid and weak, because he's in a hole doing something that requires you to not be in a hole. I shared a little bit about this from my own personal struggle, that the reason why Gideon is in the hole is so that the Midianites wouldn't steal the little bit of food that he had. So if you actually look in the greater context of the story of what's going on with him, there's some significant things that it's not fair to label him a coward for being in the hole. But Gideon gives us so many excuses after God calls him out by name, tells him that he is going to do great things, that he is, essentially favored. And Gideon goes on to give all the list, the laundry list of the reasons why God was wrong about why he was going to be able to do this stuff. I'm the least of my family. I'm this and this, and yada yada. Um, there are going to be times in your life when you feel like you are a failure. There's going to be times in your life when you do not feel like you are measuring up to what God has called you to do. I want to point out that the person doing that is also called the accuser, because that's his job and mission in his thing. Is his goal is to make you feel like you can't do anything, and he's going to point out all of your flaws and everything you did wrong, and he's never going to bring any light to the things that you are doing, even if that thing is faithfulness. I commented on somebody's video the other day, and he said, he's like, some of the comments in here are saying, you are just the worst person I've ever heard preach the gospel. And he thanked him, and I'm preaching it anyways. And I commented, the Bible doesn't say well done, good and eloquent.
Yeah.
It's well done, good and faithful servant.
Yeah.
It was, because that's what it requires. And so don't let the perception of the world change your outcome. You have to go and be who God is. And yes, there's going to be people that mock you. The worst of them are the worst people that mock us in the ministry are other Christians. Someone who's lost and doesn't understand God and has no relationship with him, yeah, I can see why they would struggle with this. But for those that are, for whatever reason, a lot of it is insecurity in themselves. They point fingers and they look at all of the things. Oh, this person's horrible at this and this, and that guy can't even clip his nose hairs, and I mean, whatever it is, you go out there and do, and when your faith seems strong, the Bible verse that came to my mind is, when I am weak, you are strong. So when my faith is weak, the prayer is the prayer of the Father who went to find Jesus. Help my unbelief. Help my unbelief. If you're not doing something that brings you to your knees and asks, if you're just not begging God for to help your unbelief, you're not living your best Christian life. The faith that we should all have should be something that changes our life and the lives of those around us. And it's going to require insane faith. Oh.
Yeah. There's, I think it was John MacArthur. I'm pretty sure it was MacArthur. He used to tell the story that when he was going through Bible college, he would always write his mom, like about every day. He'd write a letter to his mom, and he wrote her one day asking, "How is it some days you try to walk, you try to feel like you try to not feel, but you try to like you're doing your best to have this relationship, to seek him, and then sometimes," he goes, "why is it you feel these moments of silence?" And his mom wrote back. I'll never forget hearing him say this, because his mom writes back, "Sometimes that's when God wants you to just take a step of faith."
Mm.
And I think it's true. I think there's times where we feel, there are times where it's just like we're not sure. And we have to take a larger step of faith. We have to take a leap of faith, so to speak, because
Yeah.
where has God been leading us to in that point to that point? You know, and sometimes it does feel like dry seasons. Just feel like you can't quite. It may have been Billy Graham. It might have. I thought it was. I'll have to look it up. But there are times where you just have to take a step of faith. I don't know how else you put that, sum that up, because I think they did.
Let's see. Well, here's the thing that, you know, especially in leadership, you're gonna see this. If you are not challenged in your faith walk, you're not going to grow. Okay.
Correct.
And if you are going up, and you hit us, especially in a comfort spot, it's one of those seasons where God's just letting you breathe. Oh my gosh, it's great. But if you don't pick up the baton and continue on from that point and leave that and continue to grow, you're doing yourself a disservice. Okay. And when God challenges you, it's not because you don't have the capacity to achieve it. You do with his help. But we get, but a lot of times we miss the mark. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And we have to relearn that lesson, and it's not, I think that the problem with that is that we think that means that we are not able to advance in the thing that God has called us to. Well, that's not always true. Okay. But we're making our issue the issue for everyone else. All of the things that we are called to do, we are now sucking ourselves, and then be like, oh, I failed the challenge and I got to relearn the lesson and, whatever. It's like, no, now you what you're called to do is going to continue, and you're just going to be a step behind because you didn't learn this.
Right.
Okay. And you're going to have to, and now you're going to have to do this, or you're learning your lesson. I mean, we see that with King David. King David is a great example of that. Messes things up with Bathsheba, murders her husband, does all that stuff, and God's like, okay, you're not going to be the king of Israel anymore. No. He had to be the king of Israel. And, I think the hardest thing for David in that, aside from knowing that he tarnished his relationship with God, is that he had such admiration from the military that he had, and to then have to go and go up to them and continue to lead the people that now know that he would sacrifice one of them to save himself.
Right.
This is the same guy that was mad when they went and charged and took the water from the well, right? That guy was now willing to murder somebody to make it, make things okay.
Mm-hmm.
So David's job got incrementally more difficult from that point because the trust that he lost from his troops, from his military leaders, all of those things. I'm sorry, if you're capable of doing that once, you're capable of doing that again. There's nothing you could say that's going to convince me otherwise. It's, you have to continue on. And yeah, sometimes, if you are in a pastor position or things like that, yeah, you need to be publicly removed from your office. I mean, if you're murdering somebody, they'll definitely take care of that. That'll be evident. But if you are, but if you really do, if you get stuck in that, yeah, you're going to need to be restored. You're going to have to be, you're going to have to be counseled and stuff. And, and I think that churches need to be very, very careful with who they restore into ministry, because there's restoring a soul, but restore, I think it's, I think it's the Foursquare way. But their thing is like, you could be restored once, but you won't be restored twice. Like if you cheat on your wife, and you have a pastor, license, they can restore it, you go through the steps, and it's only when they say that it's good to go that you're good to go. But you do it a second time, they're not going to renew your license. No, like you're not some, that doesn't mean you can't go get a job somewhere else, but you're not going to do it under this, because you have demonstrated that even after your restoration, it wasn't, you still were not, locked in. And I think that this needs to be extended to more than just the regular, you know I hate to call it the mundane things, but I mean it needs to be applied to everything. It needs to be applied to, you know pornography. It needs to be applied to so many things that are not that are done in the public thing. It needs to be, you need to take account for yourself. Why does the Bible tell us to kick out a person who won't receive rebuke in the church? It's so that the devil may have his way with him, that he may be restored, that he may
Right.
come to salvation. It really is fundamental in why we do things like that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, this is hard stuff, but the Bible is very clear that teachers will be judged more harshly. Okay. So, get your ship in order. I said ship. I emphasize the P. Okay. And it really does, make a huge, huge difference. Um, yeah. No, yeah, leadership is definitely an interesting beast.
Yep.
Lead well. When you have the greatest example of a leader you'd ever need in Jesus, go and do it. No, you're never going to measure up. just know that.
Yeah.
Man, we talked a lot about leadership tonight.
You kept going away from it.
It keeps pulling me back in.
Yeah.
There's something I wanted to talk about. I'm trying to remember what it was. Well, if nobody has any questions, since we're making a lot of statements tonight, I'm making a statement. I'll give a little bit of time.
They all came from somewhere.
Yeah, and they just bunny trailed back into this.
This is true. Yeah.
All right, I'll pull it up. Chat, you got your orders. Put it in the chat if you got a question.
What's he got?
Uh-oh. Did I lose it? Hope I didn't lose it. Nope. Might be sad. Aha, here we go. It actually has a question in it. Let's go. So, is the temptation of the Garden of Eden the same temptation of transgenderism? I'll continue. The snake told Adam and Eve that they would be like God. Transitioning is the same attempt to be like or perceived as. If transgenderism is the worship of self, and the self flagellation of genital mutilation is the sacrifice on the altar of pride, I believe that the answer is a resounding yes. And the only way this can be acceptable is to proselytize and allow the weight of public opinion to blaspheme the Holy Spirit by drowning out the words, "Be still and know I am God." Should I reread the question?
No, I mean, I think I would hope by now you know what my response to that is.
In response to what?
So, if that's going to be your view of that, then now we have a class system to sin being greater than another.
Why?
Because sin is sin across the board,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yeah.
So now we're gonna liken one particular thing unto the first temptation of sin.
Well, the outcome of the sin is the same.
Okay.
The point that I'm trying to draw down on that's not written out in so much of the legalese, right? Because there's like the point of trying to convince, right?
Mm-hmm.
The temptation in the Garden of Eden is what? That if you eat the fruit, you will be like God.
Right.
So it's not about the sin being greater than or less than. It's about the mentality of the individual.
That's the mentality then in all sin, though.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Right. So there's no reason to. I guess I have a hard time singling something out because this is something that's happening constantly inside of our society right now.
Mm-hmm.
And people need to understand that it doesn't, you know, Christians have a habit of pointing things out,
Mm-hmm.
but then continuing in their own
Absolutely.
shortcomings.
It's really easy to point it at a pride flag and go, "That's sin," but then cheat on your taxes. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, or whatever. Take your pick.
Well,
right. And I get really annoyed with it because it's created, society has created a subclass of sin as a result.
Mm-hmm.
Well, this is worse than that.
Mm-hmm.
Which we really need to get out of that mindset and get to the gravity of what sin is. And on top of that, from the gravity standpoint, is we need to remember that when we're dealing with people, their shortcoming is no different than my shortcoming. Right?
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like in the approach of that statement, and then question, that it separates things. I've broke him. Broke's not the right word. Oh, you might want to read it again for Jonathan C7.
Okay.
He apparently stepped away, just so he knows what we're talking.
Yes. I made Dr. Elliot squint really hard. So the question is the temptation of the Garden of Eden the same temptation of transgenderism? The snake told Adam and Eve that they would be like God. Transitioning is the same attempt to be like or perceived as. If transgenderism is the worship of self, and the self flagellation of genital mutilation is the sacrifice on the altar of pride, I believe that the answer is a resounding yes. And the only way this can be acceptable is to proselytize and allow the weight of public opinion to blaspheme the Holy Spirit by drowning out the words, "Be still and know I am God."
Hmm.
I think that my approach on this is more in the vein of understanding the temptation. I would disagree that it creates a subcategory of a greater or lesser sin. Because I think that those that believe that, you can be a Christ follower and LGBTQ, their statement is that, well, because Christians continue to sin even after following after Christ, we can continue in this,
Mm-hmm.
right? And we know that there is a willful indulgence of the sin life, and therefore your life is not crucified. You haven't crucified the flesh to continue to do this, continue to be identified in this way, as opposed to being identified in the promises of God. It's oxymoronic. You can't have the two. The two are not. It's oil and water. right? Willful participation in sin, or let me rephrase that, the willful excusing of sin, that grace may abound, right, is the issue.
Okay.
Okay. What I'm referring to in here is the temptation of transgenderism is to be like or perceived as, right? And so it's the lie of the enemy that you can be this or perceived as this if you do this. It's not to, I guess I'm are you tracking with me, or
No, I'm coming from that angle. I can see what you're saying.
mhm.
I think you get to tread very carefully on that, though.
Mm.
Um, because I think that the problem, 100% on the willful sin part, like it's a known thing. If we, I don't want to go back to the leadership side of things, but if we go back to church discipline,
Mhm.
right, that's the core. That's the core of where it breaks down.
Right.
Willful. Because if an individual's unwillful in it, they're like, then and they're being honest with themselves, then it's a case of, oh, I didn't realize that. What do we do? Right. But when it comes down to the second time, now it's a case of this person doesn't want to change.
Mhm.
Right. So understanding that, yes. I think we have to be very careful with certain things because I as we progress as Christians, right? So through the process of sanctification, right? Understand that that's a process that's our lifelong, right? That's not something that ends. It's not
Mhm.
salvation. I want to be clear; those are different things. The sanctification is, we talk about the walk with God, the relationship with Christ. That is what that process is
Mhm.
referred to in Scripture. It's real easy to want to understand, like, and from you to want to understand where an individual's coming from, to where how an individual perceives that. So from that standpoint, sure, I can see how you could liken the two to each other, or draw a parallel, so to speak, to put it in a more, I don't know, the word is slipping my mind, but I think we have to be very careful though, because it's that same logic boils down to being applied to anyone in sin. The 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 wanting of something they couldn't have, in the garden, to be more like him, right? To have the knowledge of good and evil,
Mhm.
right?
They already knew what the knowledge of
Is
good and evil was, though.
right. No, right. I understand, but at the same time, like, it's the same lie that the devil's been pitching forever,
Mhm.
right? So I think we have to be very careful with that.
Well, it's the same lie that the devil told himself. So I got him kicked out of heaven.
Right.
You know? So, I think that I think it's a difficult thing. I think that, when we see Jesus encounter the woman at the well, can't go a week without mentioning John chapter 4. Um,
It's true.
I
It's
mean,
true.
why not? Um, Jesus pries her about her lifestyle,
Yeah.
and she admits it. She says, "Oh, I have no husband." You
That
know,
was true. Thou hast 5.
yeah, lots of husbands. You know, it's like, but her life changes from that point on. She goes and says, "Come meet somebody who told me everything I ever did." Zacchaeus meets Jesus, gives restitution for his lifestyle. It's you cannot be friends. To be friends with the world is to be at enmity with Christ. Is what the Bible says. So holding on to a lie is to not hold to the truth. And that's why I say oil and water, in that. But I guess I'm drawing closer to your assessment of the question. Right. Because I think that we do have the tendency to push this particular issue to the forefront.
It's the reason it's become, and I don't want to point fingers, and it's because I believe it's both sides.
Mm-hmm.
Christians have done a very poor job of handling it,
Mm-hmm.
to the point that it's not getting handled. It's being thrown to the ditch.
Yeah.
And from the political standpoint of the other side, that has been pushed to the far extent of now all Christians have thrown them to the wayside and think, very poorly of them. I my majority of my friends group, like the people I consider myself really close to, come sit in my streams throughout the rest of the week, and you'll hear some of them. There's cheers going around the corner. They know I'm not going to partake, but they know I'll sit there and sip a cup of coffee with them, right? Mm-hmm. The individuals I've befriended through work, half of the guys I know are not straight.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll lump it up that way. Yeah. And I've introduced all these individuals to each other now, right? I'm like, hey, Ben, have you met Kevin? Kevin, have you met Joe, right? And we all live the circle. We all shoot the same style of archery. I sit and I teach them. A lot of times now it's the 3 of them standing together. It's really hard to be a Christian around them sometimes because the jokes are left and right, and it's hard. But what, Joe, the other day, we were sitting there, it was just me and him, and he's a middle school music teacher. So I'm picking his brain because I'm like, hey, I'm thinking he's been successful. I'm like, hey, I'm thinking about teaching music. What do you think? What would you do different in your, I'm asking him questions,
right,
like a friend would.
Right.
And he's answering questions, and we're standing there, and he goes, I have something I wanted to ask you. He goes, did you know what you were doing when you introduced me to Kevin and Ben? And I'm like, yeah. I know you all live a similar lifestyle. I said, I don't agree with your lifestyle. You already know that. But I accomplished nothing by making a point about it. Right? I said, I would love you to believe what I believe, as I'm sure you would me. I'm like, but I'm not here to judge you. I'm still a sinner. I'm speaking to them as a Christian, and they know that, right? Because they know I talk to them. I tell them things happening in church, like they're just another Joe Schmo I talk to, right? I've had theological conversations with these people. It's hilarious to me, right? I'm sitting there kind of wanting to chuckle because, it's a very different worldview. But that's where those people can come to me now and they can ask me questions. It's happened. Hey, I saw this. What do you think about this? Things related to other Christians, things related to theological questions.
Yeah.
But as Christians, there's a lot of people who think I'm a really bad person for that. right? And I'm getting very tired of it
Mhm.
because there's a people group. I don't want to be. There's a community that we as Christians are failing to reach.
Mhm.
Why?
Well, on one hand, I feel like dialogue is broken down. You know, that the lies now is that, you know, Jesus was woke,
Yeah.
you know, that that essentially that enough of a lie has entered into the truth that you know that people's perception of who Jesus is skewed, and so you can lovingly have a conversation with Jesus with somebody and they wouldn't have to change their lifestyle, right? And like that's where churches that promote that agenda, right, they think that they're doing a loving act by saying you're welcome here. There is not a single church that preaches the complete gospel that would not welcome sinners into their church.
Right.
Okay. But that doesn't mean that they have to make them people feel comfortable with their sin
Oh,
when they're
agreed.
at church.
Right.
So we've had I was talking with our senior pastor at our church. There was a lesbian couple that started to come before our time, and they were there for months and months, and the people loved on them, just not because they were lesbians, but just that's just the nature of the
They're
church.
people. Yeah.
They just that's their thing, is food and community and love, and and whatever. And one of them gave their life to Christ on one of the Sundays, you know and and now they're sitting in this tension.
Yeah.
Right now they're sitting in this tension because you know so they called they called to do a meeting with the pastor and his wife, and and they got in the room and they said, this basically means that our entire life is going to have to come apart, that our marriage is going to have to come apart, that the kid we adopted is not going to live with both of us,
Mm-hmm.
and all of that. And it's like the human side of me, the empathetic side of me says, oh gosh, it's so hard. The pastor side of me says, it's so hard, but you are either going to operate in truth,
Right.
or you're not.
Yeah.
Right.
We're
And
in a completely different ballgame though when you're to that point.
mm-hmm. No,
Right.
I
I've seen the exact same thing for someone realizing their need for Christ. And this is a case of I've walked up to the door, I've realized I need to step through the door, but I realized what's beyond that door
mm-hmm.
over baptism. Right? Individual grew up very staunch Catholic in Mexico. If
Mm-hmm.
anyone knows the culture,
Yep.
you're disowned.
Yep.
And he realized that. And that was his stumbling block.
Yep.
Right. But we're in a different ballgame because we've realized the need.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. The
No, I don't disagree, and I want to make sure people understand. I don't disagree with like you as a church and as a pastor and leadership in a church. It doesn't mean you don't talk about it. It doesn't mean you don't preach against it from the pulpit.
mm-hmm.
You still have to say hard things.
Yeah.
Like that's just part of it. But I think the difference is, in the case of talking about your church, the approach of loving on people can still be done.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Yeah. And I the conclusion of that story is that they couldn't pull the trigger on it, and they left the church. they're still friends with the pastor and his wife, but they don't attend.
Yeah.
You know, and I get it. I hear it. I understand it. You know, but if we're going to love people, the truth is the long game. The truth is a long game. If you don't tell someone the truth to spare their feelings, you don't love that person.
Yeah.
You know, because the truth is, you know, that yes, we serve a holy and just God. We are not deserving of salvation, but
Yeah.
Christ died for us. Okay.
Yeah.
And you know, and so you have to be able to walk and have that conversation with people. You need to be able to engage, you know, with people in a loving and compassionate manner. You know, and I don't fault people that struggle with that. I struggle with it. Not because it's hard to love people, but because it's hard to be comfortable around certain things. You know, when you love someone, you know, you want what's best for them. And to see people struggle with addiction, to see people struggle with this kind of stuff, it really does shift your perspective, and it shifts your it shifts your perspective. You know, but you know, I really do think that we need to understand and be able to counter, you know, more than ever, the platitudes that have been spoken for the sake of appeasement or easement of the gospel.
Hmm.
I don't know. I'm tired.
It's that time.
It is that time.
He's hitting it now at 2 hours every time.
You know, I used to have a young man's bladder. I used to have a young man's stuff. Now I'm having to take breaks in the middle of the stream to go to the bathroom, and I'm clocking out at 11:50. Oh no, it was just a long day.
Yeah.
You know.
That was me Monday.
Yeah. Oh well. Let's see. Yeah, my brain's not even working anymore. It's done. It's done. I'm done. We got people popping in over here on the Purple Channel. Thank you so much for being here. Stay with us. We're gonna raid out to somebody. Who are we gonna raid out to?
I don't know who's live right now.
And who you got?
I'm laughing. Jonathan C7 said something.
Sorry, guys, fell asleep. Hey,
Only...
you know what?
I mean, I've got people live, but the only person we probably want to rate is Trevor. That I have.
We got Era of Era.
Era? Like ERA?
Yeah, here I'll shoot you her thing here. I haven't spent a lot of time in her chat, but actually I'm sending it in Discord to be smart.
Playing Apex.
Yeah, she does a lot with like Redeem J and NTF and stuff. So, but she's been killing it.
Okay.
Yeah, let's go ahead and I'm gonna read out over there.
Oh, good.
Yep. Oops, that didn't work. All right, Chad, thank you so much for being here. I I hit 0 energy like 2 minutes ago. Like
Stop. Completed conversation.
power
Looked up.
down. I was just beginning to love. Oh, Jonathan, thank you for being here. Get some sleep. You know, yeah. If I were you, I'd back up about 30 minutes on the stream tomorrow. And then cut about 15 minutes after that. If I were you. Oh. All right. I'm going to read out, brother. Have a good night, Dr. Elliott. Peace.
Peace.
I can't find it.
It's there.
All right. There we go. Go ahead and get this raid popping off. God bless y'all. I love you. Have an amazing rest of your night. We will see you next time. GG's. Oh, no. It's not letting me do it. All right. To everybody else, have a